Oh, it's just single player. I mean, you know what it's like. The kids are gonna say no rollback, no buy. Yeah, man, we could get into the parsec mines, absolutely. We were talking about this. You don't need to make a game that has online net play. I'm always gonna be sad, right? When I can't play with my friends online. I'm always gonna be sad, don't get me wrong. You don't need to make a game. That's what people, legitimately, that is what people are gonna hear when I say you don't need online in fighting games in the year 2024. But it's true. I need to know what you're making. Don't sell me a, hey man, this is gonna be the next best, greatest thing in competitive fighting games, and not give me an online mode. If you're gonna be the guy who's making, hey, this is the dope ass throwback to arcade fighting games, give me local versus and give me an arcade mode. Give me a ladder. Give me an MK style like arcade ladder. That's fine, but you've got to be clear about what you're selling people, right? And what you're kind of trying to do here. Robo-O doesn't have online. That makes me a very sad boy. I would love to have Robo-O with rollback netcode. Rollback? Rollback-O? Like, yes, give me Rollback-O. They're making a modern retro NES style fighting game. Am I gonna be mad that an NES game ostensibly doesn't have rollback? Doesn't have netcode? I mean, you're selling me a $5 game that is supposed to bring me back to playing on an NES. I'm kind of cool with that. I just think it's important that developers are clear about what it is they're making and selling. Because yeah, if ArcSys came to me and said, hey man, next Guilty Gear, no online, then I'd be like, what the hell is going on? I mean, legitimately, like, the push for rollback was amazing. I'm glad that there was a community understanding that this is important for our games, particularly the competitive scene, and that we kind of rallied around that. But like, do y'all remember when like games could just be like single player games could just be single player games, and then everyone was like, hey, COD does online, why doesn't every game on the Xbox 360 and PS3 do online? And then they started making every game on the Xbox 360 and PS3 have online modes, and we were like, what is this nonsense? Like, why is it even here? This is not what I'm here for with the game. I think we're getting a little bit of that with fighting games at this point. We had to be so hyper-focused on rollback netcode as a thing that we're demanding, for good reason. But then, now that we're largely getting it, we're cutting out a whole subgenre of fighting games that if you're unable to manage providing for online play, and like, let's be real, basically in perpetuity, then you're not a fighting game worth investing in. I think that is a little short-sighted. Oh my god. Draco instantly starts off with the Kara air throw. I'm sorry. And yeah, the time on the side, I think it's just an arcade mode timer. I think they're just like, hey guy, don't you remember when that was it? Like, hey man, once again, talking about what games did I used to play? Like, when I played fighting games in the arcade, I played the game not, like, honestly, half the time was probably playing against other people. The other half the time was score runs. Man, I miss doing arcade runs, like high score arcade runs for fighting games. I used to do that stuff all the time. And like, I stopped engaging with fighting games in that way, right? And I don't know, that seems like a shame. Your final time was 4:48. Yo, you're right, Super HC. We're doing the speed run. They even encourage you to screenshot it. Dude, if they just implemented a share to Twitter feature right there and then, that would be amazing. To the point of the discussion about online modes in fighting games, if you're not gonna have an online mode, I do think it would behoove you as a designer and a creator to include some kind of connectivity. It was the classic move in the early days of the Wii, where everyone was like, there's no online play on the Wii, this sucks. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of games did a very good job of incorporating leaderboards, of incorporating challenges, of incorporating, little things here and there where you could use online connectivity. So doing something like allowing you to send out your scores to Twitter and stuff like that, to share it, to help build community around that. That's really cool. Having a leaderboard that people can challenge each other on and like kind of like stake a claim on, that makes sense. Like, that's something that, I don't know, I'd like to see more of that. Fellow said that something to the effect of fighting game AI has not progressed since the 2000s, and the only reason it doesn't is that the decision makers don't prioritize it. They can't do much without the investment of proper time. And that's true, and fighting game AI should taunt into infinite more. Doing more interesting things with the AI, I think, is something that, once again, really behoove you. I don't necessarily need the online mode if I'm playing the game in interesting ways, and an interesting AI does that. Footsies does an amazing job of that, of having really, really discrete and distinct AI opponents, so that when you're going through arcade mode, you face Johnny Mick only throws, and you face Harry Hadouken, who only throws Dukins. You have Blocking Billy, who only blocks ever, right? And like having those very, very distinct AI archetypes actually lends this like almost puzzle element to it. It is very engaging as a player for me who plays a lot of fighting games, who maybe wants to challenge themselves about certain aspects, but it's also great for teaching new players what the core concepts in fighting games are. You need to know what block and punish is. You need to know what counter poking is or out poking. You can do that. You can teach your players just through that. That is the equivalent of Mario Brothers level 1-1. Mario World 1-1, where you walk forward and there's a Goomba on the ground and you walk right into it because you don't know that jump exists. Oh, I'm gonna press a button. You walk forward and you jump over top of them. The AI in Footsies is that for fighting games. And I would love, love, love more of that in more of our fighting games. Guy, round start throw. Stop it. Yo, you're right, Warthog. The tutorialization of Knockout City was really good in that regard. I mean, yeah, there are some solid examples of it. The Smash Bros. Amiibo, as you point out, really having really fun, interesting, unique AI. The Shadow AI, or whatever they're called, in Killer Instinct. And even the original Marvel vs. Capcom, Vanilla MVC3, did something like that, where you could download basically team compositions from like top players and members of the development team. You could face like Nitsuma's team and an AI based on their tendencies. You could face Justin Wong's team and a team based on like AI based on their tendency. That's so dope. Like, I don't get it, man. I don't get why we don't get more of that. Like, that was always damn engaging. I actually, legitimately, for the Marvel 3 shit, I don't know if anybody has those saved. Can you still access them today? I'm not sure. Oh, you can still access the UMVC. No, not the UMVC one. I'm talking about the original vanilla Marvel 3 like AI characters. You could download them. But I don't know if they're still available unless you have. I have some of them, but not all of them. Granted, my Xbox 360 has now a red ring, so I have fucking none of them. The UMVC card thing was really cool too, actually. That's another example of like single player content. I played the shit out of that, man. I enjoyed that so much. Right, more fighting games they could do with the proper onboarding process. There's a certain bit of like, yes, like fighting games take effort to learn to get really competent, and right, they can be relatively difficult to learn. They're not really much harder than most other games, but I feel like, yeah, most other games do a way better job of tutorializing you on that stuff. So you don't see it as much, right? Yeah, the perceived difficulty is often down to the communication. And I mean, like, man, I've talked about this several times. Like, not only the communication from developers and designers, but the communication from the community itself. We have a great tendency to make our games probably seem a little bit more complicated because we enjoy the complexity. So we often present that as like core and fundamental to the experience, even if it's not. Maybe we don't need a condescending lecture from an anime girl on how to walk. Yeah. Like, Skullgirls did an okay job. I think Fantasy Strike did a pretty decent job. I think Fantasy Strike's biggest strength was actually their individual character guides, which they had included in the game. Though that is, honestly, it's still homework, right? Like, it's still, you don't learn through playing, you learn by watching a video that explains the play. And it's like, cool. Like, that's also important, right? But the beauty of so many of our games, like I said, there's a reason that Mario World 1-1 is often used as that prime example of teaching through play. Consider ways for games that are not platformers. How do you accomplish that? Yeah, Mohas, you're right. There is also this thing about, yeah, a lot of players don't consider learning playing. It is, though, right? Yeah, is doing the inputs just like a computer opponent the ultimate goal, or is playing the game just fun by itself? The act of playing, when people say that they're not really playing the game, I use that terminology too sometimes, and I'm trying to get away from it, because the real game, with scare quotes, is playing the game however you're playing it is playing the game, right? Like, but I think what people are trying to get at when they say I'm not playing the real game, or you need to learn to play the real game, is that it's about playing with intent, right? Rod F of the Bearsys developer and Jump Joust developer, they talk about this idea a lot, right? Of playing with intent. And yeah, that is it. When you're making a choice as a player and you feel like I am not just mashing, right? I did the thing because I wanted an outcome and I could see how I get that outcome or not, right? That is it. You don't have to be able to do all the things, but you have to be able to understand when are you at a point where you're hitting buttons and having them matter, right? Having you understand why they might matter.
Ready.
Some of that playing with intent can happen with 2 buttons, right? You can play with intent with Ryu by doing crouching medium kick and crouching fierce. You can play with intent with just those 2 buttons. You don't need to know how to do an FADC combo into Ultra. So it's about getting your players there, right? And even when you're not there, you're still playing the game. But I think, yeah, when that kind of topic comes up, I feel that's usually what people are trying to get at, but they don't have the words for it. It should be fun to discover how to play just as much as to play at a high level. Absolutely. Learning to play the game should not be medicine, man. Like, the act of learning, the act of discovery, that is a really important part of our fighting games. More important, I would argue, than, being able to do the tough combo or the whatever, right? Like lightning loops in Marvel, whatever, man. It's like that is way less important than the stuff surrounding it. We all really love the stuff surrounding it, but for some reason our priorities and our like point of discussion is most often around the competition and the execution. And once again, I love high execution shit, guys. That's great, but that is far from the only thing that we're here for, and we often forget the other elements.